She never complained, not once, in 15 years of Parkinson's disease. That is who Valerie Perrine really was. And today, the whole world needs to know her name. She was not the hero, she was not the villain, she was something rarer than either. She was the one with the kind heart, the one who chose to do the right thing, even when everything around her was wrong, the one who made you smile in the middle of a story about capes and superpowers and saving the world. That was Eve Teschmacher. That was Valerie Perrine. March 23rd, 2026, at her home in Beverly Hills, California, Valerie Perrine passed away peacefully at the age of 82. After 15 years of living with Parkinson's disease, 15 years of fighting, of courage, of never once complaining, she was finally at rest. Hollywood, and everyone who ever loved her, felt the loss. Valerie Perrine was born on September 3rd, 1943, in Galveston, Texas. She grew up moving, an army brat whose childhood took her across the country and eventually to the bright lights of Las Vegas. And it was there, in Las Vegas, that her story really began. She became a showgirl, not as a footnote, not as a stepping stone she was embarrassed about, but as a genuine chapter in a life that was always full of color, energy, and an absolute refusal to be ordinary. From the Las Vegas stage to Hollywood, Valerie Perrine made a journey that very few people have ever made, and she made it entirely on her own terms. She arrived in Hollywood in the early 1970s, and within 2 years, she had done something that most actors spend their entire careers chasing. She was nominated for an Academy Award, not for a small independent film, not for a supporting role. For Best Actress, one of the most coveted nominations in the history of cinema, for her portrayal of Honey Bruce in the 1974 biopic Lenny. From Las Vegas Showgirl to Oscar nominee in 2 years. That was Valerie Perrine. Let's talk about what Valerie Perrine achieved, because it does not get talked about enough. For her role as Honey Bruce in Lenny, she did not just receive an Oscar nomination, she won the Best Actress Award at the Cannes Film Festival, one of the most prestigious film festivals in the entire world. Standing on that stage in the south of France, recognized by the international film community as the best actress of that year. She also won a BAFTA for Most Promising Newcomer, the British Academy's recognition that something genuinely extraordinary had arrived in Hollywood. Oscar nomination, Cannes Best Actress, BAFTA winner, all for her very first major film role. In a different era, with a different set of circumstances, Valerie Perrine might have become one of the biggest stars Hollywood ever produced. The talent was unquestionable. Recognition was real. The moment was hers, and she used it beautifully. If the awards world knew Valerie Perrine for Lenny, the rest of the world knew her for something else entirely. Superman. One of the most beloved films ever made. Valerie Perrine played Eve Teschmacher, Lex Luthor's loyal but kind-hearted assistant. A woman who worked for the villain but could not quite bring herself to be one. A woman who, at the crucial moment, chose the hero. She was funny, she was warm, she was human in a film full of extraordinary things, and audiences absolutely adored her. She returned for Superman 2 in 1980 and cemented Eve Teschmacher as one of the most beloved supporting characters in superhero movie history. Fans on social media, in the days following her passing, remembered her as a real-life superheroine. They celebrated her sass, her sweetness, and her pure fun. They talked about how she made Eve Teschmacher feel like a real person. Not just a sidekick, not just comic relief, but a woman with a genuine heart making genuine choices. That is the gift of a truly great actor. They make you forget you are watching a performance. With Valerie Perrine, you always forgot. And yet, even Superman was just one chapter. Valerie Perrine appeared in Slaughterhouse-Five in 1972, the adaptation of Kurt Vonnegut's beloved novel, in a role that showcased a completely different dimension of her talent. She starred alongside Robert Redford in The Electric Horseman in 1979, one of the most charming films of that entire era. And then there was Can't Stop the Music in 1980, the gloriously wild, joyful, utterly one-of-a-kind film that became a genuine cult classic. A film that people still discover today and fall completely in love with. From drama to comedy, from prestige cinema to cult classics, from Cannes to Superman, Valerie Perrine never stayed in one lane. She never needed to. She was an original, in every sense of the word. Now, we need to talk about the chapter that defined Valerie Perrine's final years, because it is the chapter that reveals who she truly was at her core. Sometime around 2011, Valerie Perrine was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. For 15 years, she lived with a condition that is progressive, relentless, and deeply challenging. Condition that takes things from you slowly but surely. Your movement, your independence, your ability to live the life you always knew. And in 2022, her close friend and filmmaker Stacey Souther made a documentary about her life and her journey called simply Valerie. It was a film about courage, about grace, about what it looks like to face something enormous and refuse to be defined by it. Souther described her as a true inspiration who lived life to the fullest. She said Valerie faced Parkinson's disease with incredible courage and compassion, and then she said something that stopped everyone who heard it. She never once complained. 15 years. And she never once complained. That is not just courage. That is character. That is the deepest, most unshakable kind of strength. The kind that has nothing to do with what you can do on a screen or on a stage. The kind that only reveals itself in the hardest moments. Valerie Perrine had that strength, in abundance, until her very last day. The Future Youth Zone. There is one more thing that needs to be said, because the reality of Valerie Perrine's final years was not just a health battle, it was a financial one too. 15 years of medical care had exhausted her finances. When she passed away, her final wish was to be buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Hollywood Hills, the resting place of legends. A GoFundMe campaign was established by those who loved her to make sure that wish could be honored, and the response from fans? Immediate, overwhelming. Beautiful. People who had grown up watching her, people who had laughed at Eve Teschmacher's one-liners and cried at Honey Bruce's heartbreak, people who had watched the documentary Valerie and been moved by her courage. They showed up for her the way she had always shown up for them. That is what a real legacy looks like. Valerie Perrine was a Las Vegas showgirl who became an Oscar nominee, a BAFTA winner who became a Cannes Best Actress, a woman who played a villain's assistant and made her the most lovable person in the room. Real-life superheroine who fought for 15 years without ever once complaining. She lived life to the fullest. She faced the hardest things with grace. She never lost her sass or her sweetness or her pure joy. And on March 23, 2026, she went home, peacefully. Her home in Beverly Hills, surrounded by the life she had built and the love she had earned. Valerie Perrine, showgirl, actress, Oscar nominee, Cannes winner, superheroine, warrior. The world is better for every single moment she was in it. Rest in peace, Valerie. You never once complained. And the whole world is grateful.